Donise, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad we connected. I'm so glad that I could be a part of your Unstoppable Mom Summit coming up. And I can't wait to talk about it now on the podcast.
Thank you. Look, I'm excited for being here and for you saying yes. Your yes is going to change lives. I already know that.
Aw, I just love that, we live in this time where women, especially who are doing things to help others, can sit in different places of the world, different places of the country, and come together and talk about our aligned mission to help moms and women. So let's talk about your mission. You are known as the unprofessional mom, and that is just a really bold title. So tell us the story behind that and how you came up with that name.
Okay, so first I'm going to tell you I was scared to even use that name. But before doing what I do now, I was a teacher. And of course, there were a lot of people who would watch me and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're so good with your kids." Even some of my family members and some of my friends are like, "Oh my gosh." And they would always ask me for tips, and I would give them
Mhm.
tips. And I thought to myself, why is everyone coming to me? What do I know that they don't know? And eventually it came to a point where I thought, well, why don't I just box all this stuff up and turning it into something that can help people? But I chose Unprofessional Mom because there's nothing professional about me. There's nothing professional about being a mom. And I believe when you give yourself permission to be unprofessional, or in other words, not perfect, things flow a whole lot easier and better.
I think that that's a wonderful story. And I can really resonate with that on a lot of levels, in that I do a lot of things that people are like, wow, how do you do that? And they ask me for tips. And for the longest time, I never valued that skill that people asked me about. And so I love that you're stepping up and you are claiming it. You're going, this is what I'm good at. This is what I can help people with. And I think that that's so important. So you're the visionary behind the Unstoppable Mom Summit, like we were talking about. Let's talk about what inspired you to create the event, and specifically, how is it that you want to support moms to show up more empowered and, like you said, unapologetic?
Okay, so this one right here is very near and dear to my heart because I was at that spot where a lot of moms are now, trying to just find our way. It's almost like we're treading the waters of motherhood, treading the waters of life,
Yeah.
trying to figure ourselves out. And the whole idea was to give moms permission to say, I am enough. It's okay for me to take care of me because if I am good, other people around me can be good too. And we're not trying to be good just so other people can be good. We're trying to be good because we are important too. And because we are who we are, because we are designed the way we are, once we're good, everyone else and everything else connected to us also falls in alignment with that.
Mm, I love that. And we often carry a lot of guilt about wanting more freedom, more impact, more income. So, how does the summit help women and moms help shift that mindset and give moms permission to thrive?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. So, this summit is going to feature people like yourself who have been through the pitfalls of motherhood. We've been in the trenches. And what this is going to do is help moms either get out of the trenches or avoid the trenches. For one, we're going to talk about issues with guilt because motherhood guilt is some of the worst type of energy that we could ever have in our lives, that we can ever have around our families. And it's okay to say, all right, today I'm going to spend this time with my family and I'll worry about my business another time. Or today I'm going to focus on my business and someone else can help watch the kids. The kids are going to be okay. And if they're old enough, they can watch themselves. So, what's going to happen is this summit is going to empower them to be able to make decisions for themselves, knowing that they can do it. They have the power to do it and to finally get back to who they are, get back to their dreams, get back to their passions because their dreams matter, their passions matter. Who they are already is good enough and they matter.
Yeah. No, it's just so fantastic. And the thing is I think too, that also gives moms permission to find who they are now in their new phase of life. Because I think we get tripped up thinking we're supposed to be the same person. And I had this wonderful conversation with a doula this week as a guest on the podcast. And she was talking about how, in that moment, when a child is born, also a mom is born. Like, you're a new person and you have to discover who that is. You're going to have new dreams. And even as your children are growing, you're growing and evolving, hopefully. And those dreams and those expectations and what you want to achieve and who you think you are and what you think of yourself, those are all going to change. So, like we were talking about, you have a great lineup of speakers. I'm so honored to be one of them. But what are some of the qualities or the themes that are important to you to curate to be part of the event?
Oh, okay. So this question is a big one because initially wanted to have a long lineup of people, but I started to realize that the quality versus the quantity, the quality for me was far more like I want moms who are actually living the thing or have lived it and are able to talk to moms in a way where they don't feel like anyone's pointing the finger at them. They
Yeah.
feel like they're just sitting on the sofa listening to some other mom friends that they can relate to. And to me, it's all about how can we relate to these people? Can I find people who can relate to my people, who can relate to other moms?
Mhm.
So the whole thing for me was, are you authentic? Can you be authentically you? And can you give a message that will actually resonate with other moms?
Yeah. I think that's so important. And what you're essentially saying and what you're demonstrating to other mom entrepreneurs is to go with what is aligned with you. I know there have been various changes and things like that. And yeah, people think more likes or more is better. And it's not always better.
Yes.
And I think that that is just such an important lesson that you learn in entrepreneurship or anything that you do is to be discerning and to know when something feels in alignment. So I love that you're demonstrating that. And I think it's going to be a more impactful and powerful summit because of that. So I'm really looking forward to being part of it. So, what is it that you want to, leave with moms walking away from the summit and emotionally, energetically, and practically?
Oh, okay. So emotionally, I want them to walk away feeling empowered, feeling I've got this. But practically, I want them to walk away with the tools that they can have so that they can continue to feel empowered. Because if they won't continue to stay empowered, what's going to happen is they're going to kind of stay back where they are. And like you said earlier, it's about the growth. So, what's going to happen is we're going to have action plans that they can follow every day. And honestly, I would suggest that they print those out and do it as often as they can because this is going to help them. And I think I missed one. What was the other one you said energetically, was
And
it?
practically, like practical skills or things that they can walk away with. Yeah.
Okay, so practically, what we want them to do is to be able to have different tools in their toolbox to be able to do things. For example, if they're feeling guilty, they're going to have different tools that a lot of our speakers have given us for like freebies for it. So they'll be able to download those things and they'll be able to walk through it. Because whenever we start feeling guilty, honestly, the first thing we need to do is stop back and just feel it. Step back and feel the guilt. And then think to yourself, why am I guilty? Why do I feel guilty right now? And kind of reverse engineer that feeling so that we could get through that. So that's one thing that I know we're going to be able to do. And one of them, so one of my speakers is actually a nutritionist, and she is going to talk about guilt with food, which I think is so important
Yeah.
because even as entrepreneurs, sometimes we struggle trying to eat the way we think is important for us. And
Yeah.
she has some good tips about how not labeling food is so important for us. Don't label food as good or bad. Food is food, but also listen to your body to see what you need. So those are going to be some practical tips that I believe we will definitely be able to use.
Oh, that sounds so cool because I love to focus on this podcast, all of the things that concern us holistically as a mom and an entrepreneur, from relationships to parenting to food to organizing our home to all the things that we shoulder. And I love that because there's not a mom that doesn't hear at least a couple times a day, what's for dinner, right? Yeah, I love that. And personally, I just before you and I connected, I happened to create a guide to overcoming perfectionism. So that's what I'm providing, and that perfectionism leads so much to the mom guilt, right? Don't you think?
Yes, I totally agree. And think I admire those perfect moms, but I admire them from afar.
Yeah.
From afar because they don't exist, right?
They don't. And actually, I get called to be one of those a lot, which I think is so silly. But I think it's because we look at everybody else as having it more together than we do.
Mm.
And that's not true. I mean, I'm purposeful. I try to be prepared. I intentionally put things on my calendar. I intentionally try to know what shirt I've got to have for what day. And like, you know, but I think nobody has it all figured out. There is not one person that has it all figured out. So we are projecting that guilt onto ourselves by our own perception. So yeah,
Oh my
I think
gosh, that's so true. I'm so glad you said that. We're projecting it onto ourselves because we are what we think. Like the things
right.
that we think will shape who we are. And so, what I believe is what you do, what I do, is about helping moms create a new thought process so that they can see themselves for who they truly are. Because what I've noticed is that there are a lot of moms, like a lot of the moms who I have had the pleasure of mentoring, a lot of them would ask me, "Hey, can you help me find my purpose?" And as I would listen to them, I noticed that what they were really asking me is, "What's my identity? Who am I?"
Mhm.
And oh my gosh, it hurts my heart every time because the
Yeah.
whole key here is for you to find yourself. And like you said, we're always evolving, always growing. So if we take the time to just spend time with ourselves, it's one of the most beautiful things we could ever do. And it's the most beautiful thing we could ever do for ourselves and our family and anything else we decide to do.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I'm also a confidence coach, and any time that somebody is disconnected from their confidence, it is because they're disconnected from themselves and they don't know what it is that they want for themselves. They're telling themselves a story, or they think they should size up to somebody else in a completely different situation who's a completely different person, um, in a different place with a different skill set and a different nervous system and a different set of children, all the things. So I really love that. I don't know how you're doing it. You're running a summit as a mompreneur. There's so much to go into it. I know it's not a small feat. So, what behind the scenes challenges have you faced for those mompreneurs who are listening and like, man, I would love to put together a summit, um, that you've had to kind of overcome to bring your vision to life? And what did you learn in the process? I know one you and I talked about, and you're spot on.
So, one of the things that has really been a challenge was finding people who are in alignment with what I'm trying to do and who I'm trying to reach. And then another one, just small things like technology issues. Um,
Hmm.
Now I can look back on and say it was small, but then it felt so huge. And So I had to kind of deal with
Yeah.
my triggers, like why
Right.
it's triggering me so bad. I can just go buy the stuff, It was just so much going on. But the biggest thing, honestly, was me. I've had to deal with me. Like whenever things came up, I had to figure out, okay, why am I feeling this? What can I do? Like I had to look at my feelings as guides and not as something that was against me. And so I
Yes.
allowed those feelings to guide me into where I needed to go. I would stop and breathe and then say, okay, what we're going to do? What do I need to do? And then I would follow that to what I needed to do. And every time, I don't know how, but every time it worked.
And even at one point, I hope you don't mind me revealing it, you pushed
Yeah.
the date out
Oh, yeah.
and I thought that that was just, you gave yourself permission. You gave speakers permission to have more time to get you their materials, and which I was very grateful for because I'm in the midst of a move and life has been crazy. It's Maycember. It is. All the things are happening right now. So I think that that's just so wonderful. And we can take away so much from that for anything that we're doing. When the pressure creeps in and it feels like things aren't working out, how can you change it? How, we having this rigid kind of formula for how it's supposed to work out and how it's supposed to be, it's just not healthy. I mean, there's no law that you
Exactly.
have to have an event in, a certain way, with a certain amount of people on a certain date. I mean, so it just gives us permission to check in with ourselves and ask ourselves why we're feeling pressured sometimes. And like you said, you've done that. And I think that's a wonderful guide. I loved what you said, that your emotions were a messenger. I say that so much. Like your anxiety is a messenger. It's telling you something. And are you listening or are you just reacting? Right. So tell me too about, being a mom and how being a mom has shaped the way that you lead, and you're building a community and you're designing experiences like this summit.
Okay, so being a mom, first off, is a challenge all on its own. Any of you all out there know exactly what I'm talking about. But how it helped me lead is because being a mom requires you to actually really think about who you are as a person. If you want to get it, I'm not going to say done right, but if you want to make sure there's not as many hiccups in the road. So I believe that for me, it was more about loving me regardless of what's going on, being very self aware of me. And the crazy thing is that being self aware is sometimes scary because you start finding the good, the bad, and the ugly about yourself. But you have to decide, no, this is where I want to be because you can probably. You would probably agree with this. A lot of people were talking about self care for a while, and self care is very important. Then I would hear people talk about self love, and self love is important too because honestly, you can't really take care of stuff you don't love. You don't take really good care of stuff you don't love. But then I thought to myself, well, what's the prerequisite to self-love? How do I love me the way I need to love me so that I can show up and lead my family and my business? And that was self-awareness. Self-awareness is the seed, it's the conduit to self-care and self-love. Because one thing I always tell my kids when they get out the car, I tell them, be good to yourself, because when you are good to yourself, it's easier to be good to others, far easier. And that's something that I do in my life. Like I don't know how, but I can tell how people treat themselves based off how they treat others all the time. So for
Yeah.
me, it's really about leading from the heart, leading from who I am, and not trying to lead from, like you said, who someone else is, because whatever someone else's path is not my path. It's finding my path, finding my narrow road and staying there. Because when I
Mhm.
stay there, then I will easily attract those people who need what I have, and those people who have what I need, we'll be able to find each other. Like how we found each other. Like I don't know how it
Yeah.
happened. It just happened.
Yeah, no, I totally need this conversation right now. No, I mean, just all of that is 100%. And what's really at the heart of that is it can get very easy to lose sight in your family, in your business, whatever you're doing, that you get to set the tone. Like you get to, um, you know, lead the ship that you're on and steer it a certain way. We shouldn't be in this reactive mode that I think so many of us just are in default. So many of us have been modeled that, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up, but there is definitely a, a more intentional way of being that creates the results that you want to have, that creates the community you want to have. And like you said, I think that there is nothing more important than awareness, but what leads to the awareness is a curiosity, a sense of, why am I feeling so stressed? Why am I having this reaction? Why, and we can't control anybody else, but we can control this instrument we've been given.
Yes.
And so that really leads to more self control in that intentional kind of actions that I think are so important. And I think, as entrepreneurs, we're seeking out to create a life, right? And so, do you want to create whatever haphazardly that or do you really want to create what it is that you want to experience in the life you want to have? So it just all leads to that. You are modeling for your children how to also behave that way, which is so brilliant and so powerful. So kudos to you for that.
Oh, thank you.
But you talk about being real and raw in motherhood and business. How can be, and you kind of alluded to this, how can being unprofessional actually be a superpower for moms growing a business today?
So, first off, being unprofessional means that you are being who you are. And it's so crazy. I don't know if a lot of the people who are listening are aware of this, but there are some countries who do not require for us to have degrees to have certain jobs, which I thought was very interesting. Why? Because they hire people who are good at what they do based off the experience that they've had. So to me, being unprofessional means that you're not tied to a degree. You don't let your formal education get in the way of your education.
Right.
Learning about who you truly are. And it's interesting because when I was a teacher, one of the things I've noticed is that we always taught children what we were supposed to teach them, but we never taught them how to learn. And I thought that was very interesting because if you don't know how to learn, especially about yourself, you're kind of stuck. You're kind of just going on with whatever they tell you. And it's interesting because I believe, I could be wrong on the numbers, but I believe that our subconscious mind is responsible for about 90 to 95% of what we do, and the conscious mind only what reliable for about 5% of what we do, which means when we get up out the bed in the morning, we don't think about it. We just get up, go to the bathroom, use the bathroom, brush our teeth, wash our face. It's just something that we have been programmed to do in our subconscious mind. So for me, it's all about being conscious of you, because when you are conscious of you, then you can start reprogramming your subconscious mind so that you can become who you need to be, so that you can create what you need to create, so that you can impact who you were created to impact, because there is impact in you. And this, for a lot of us, it's just waiting to come out. And when those trials come, like I had trying to host a summit, when those trials come out, you say, nope, I'm still going to keep learning. I'm still going to figure out who I am so that I can get this out there. And you're not going to stop. Because once you see you for who you are, once you see that you don't have to be professional, you don't have to get it right all the time, it starts to work out, because you decide, I am not quitting because I know who I am, and I'm not quitting on me, because if I quit on me, then what's left? you know? And
Right.
there's so much there that has to come out. So keep searching for you, keep learning about who you are.
Yeah. I love it. Is there anything that you would want to leave listeners that will help them understand their own potential and just being unstoppable?
Oh, yes. So There was one of my mentees. I won't say her name, of course, and she probably wouldn't even care if I did. But she was trying to figure out like who she was becoming. She's like, I want to be that person I want to be. And I stopped. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just intuition. It was like, no, you are already who you need to be right now. Oftentimes we keep waiting for the now and the then, but you are who you are right now for a purpose, for a reason. And really the only thing you have to do is tap into who you are. Because if we're always searching, we're gonna always be searching, out there. But the key is to search within, because once you search within, you would see it was there all the time. And it's not that it was lost, it's just that you mentally may have, and I'm not trying to sound rude or anything about it, but you mentally just were not aware that you were there
Mhm.
this whole time. You just had to find you. And that's the thing. Just remember that you are exactly where you need to be right now for such a time as this.
Yeah. I have a saying, it's stop the seeking and start the knowing. And yeah, it is all about that. I do believe that we have all of the skills that we need, we have all of the knowledge that we need. We just, like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, to get quiet and reconnect with that. And we're, especially with all the technology and all of the information we have access to, we're more disconnected from ourselves than ever. And so, yeah, I hope that listeners take away that importance. Just some quiet time, just some white space, just you and yourself. And, you know, they can also reach out to wonderful people like yourself to also help them. And so tell listeners how they can connect with the summit and learn more about you and all the things.
Yeah, so the summit is going to be easy. So you can go to the unprofessionalmom.com/ the Unstoppable Mom Summit, and I'm sure you're going to have that link
Yeah,
below.
I'll link that.
It- Thank you. And then they can find me almost anywhere. They can find me on Facebook under they can find me under my personal name if they want to, because they'll see more about my life and my journey, which
Mhm.
is Donise Boyd on Facebook. And then you can find me as the Unprofessional Mom on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. So just about
Ah, I
every.
love it. Donnie, you're such a kindred spirit. I always am happier. I feel in community when I talk with you.
Aw.
And I'm so glad we connected. And I can't wait to see the lives that are impacted by the summit. And be sure to check out all the links in the show notes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.